Hey everybody, this is Yogi Aaron here from Blue Osa Yoga Retreat and Spa in Costa Rica. And today's topic that we're going to be discussing is how to invest wisely. And so I've been doing a few of these kind of discussions about yoga teacher trainings and what are some of the things that we want to consider when we're doing a yoga teacher training. And in the last few, I've been talking about red flags when choosing a yoga teacher. I've been talking about the red flags that you want to consider when choosing a yoga teacher training. And today I want to talk about the cost of yoga teacher trainings. How much should you be paying when you choose a yoga teacher training? And there's so much to think about, and there's so much to consider when choosing yoga teacher training that a lot of people are getting stuck in the weeds of, like, should I be paying more? Should I be paying less? And well, it's yoga, so it should be free. You get a lot of those people too. So everybody has an opinion, and I'm gonna stick my opinion into this big mess. I think I bring a little bit more experience and nuance to this discussion because I have a much broader perspective. I've been teaching yoga for more than 30 years now, and I have led numerous yoga teacher trainings. I have numerous amounts of training in my background. I've studied under a lot of different yoga teachers. I have an extensive background in anatomy and physiology. I am a muscle specialist, and for lack of better words, I'm a master yoga teacher. So I have a little bit of perspective, and a lot of people get really stuck in the weeds sometimes of what should I be choosing, you know, and then of course we have our own conjecture put into that. So let's start at the beginning. A few considerations people have or think about when choosing a yoga teacher training. Where is it going to be? So some people just like look for a yoga teacher training that's in their backwoods, which is completely fine. It's normal. If you live in, for example, Chicago, it might make sense for you to do a teacher training that's in Chicago. But other people like to travel. And so I have a really good friend, my friend Karina Ann Mirsky, who's in Kalamazoo. And she has one of her trainings that she teaches like a week, and then you have a few months off, and then it's another week, and it's a few months off, and it's another week. And so that can be a really good way to offer yoga teacher trainings, and it allows you to take some teachings, let it sit, let it saturate into you, and then you go back out into the world and practice it. And then you come back and you get some more of the teachings and you illuminate more, and then you go back out. So that can be a really good model. One of the models that I think is not so effective, and again, this is a little bit of my own judgment, a little bit of perception, is this kind of teacher trainings that just do like 1 weekend a month. And the reason why that just doesn't work is because you never really get saturated. It's kind of like if you're making a cup of tea and you have a really nice peppermint tea, and you just literally put it in the water for like 5 seconds, and then you pull it out. That tea is not going to taste very strong. So the more you get a saturated experience in your yoga practice, in your yoga teaching, which ultimately is what a good yoga teacher training should do for you, that the more profound that experience is going to be for you. So when choosing a yoga teacher training, that's something to really think about and consider. Another consideration people have, obviously, then is, can my schedule fit around it? And that's why I like the immersive experience so much. When you're going through a yoga immersive experience, you can plan to take time out of your life. You can take that 2 weeks or the 3 weeks or the 1 month and really, again, get saturated, become steeped. I love that word, steeped. Like, to become steeped in a tradition is so potent. But then the third consideration that people have is money. Money, 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 money. And this is an interesting discussion to have because, you know, one of the things that, you know, we can be talking about anything randomly, and some friend of mine will say, well, how expensive is it? Like if I'm talking about going to see a movie and they'll say like, well, how expensive is it? Or I'll be talking about a new restaurant that I discovered and they'll say, well, how expensive is it? And I'll say, well, what is your definition of expensive? Like, what is expensive for you? And so this is a very personal topic, and I understand that and want to approach this topic with as much respect as possible. And so I'm not going to be really talking about dollar amounts per se. I'll be talking about generalizations and let you guys kind of decide what works for you. But before I continue, I want to ask you guys, and I'm going to ask you guys a few times just to remind you, please put in the comments, tell me what you think a teacher training should be worth. Like, is a teacher training worth to you like $1,000? Are you willing to pay $4,000, $7,000, $10,000? Like, you go in and you do this deep transformational experience, hopefully if you've had a good teacher, that is. How much do you think this teacher training should be worth? How much would you pay for a yoga teacher training? So please put that in the comments. Share your thoughts and ideas about that. I would really love to hear from you. So first of all, there's yoga teacher trainings that I would say are for as little as $500. In fact, I can actually say that I saw yoga teacher trainings being offered for free. And I don't know what the catch was. I'm sure there was a catch. I'm sure there was something, some hidden agenda going on. So I can't really speak to that. But what I can say is that there's just different, there's very low yoga teacher training. So for as little as $500 to several thousands of dollars. So let me address the big elephant in the room. Are the 500 yoga teacher trainings worth it? And quite frankly, I would say that if your yoga teacher training is for free, or if it's being offered for $500, I would say that's a huge red flag. I would actually encourage you not to jump into that pool of mess, but like hijack it, hightail it rather, run the opposite direction. A lot of these 500-hour yoga teacher trainings or teacher trainings that are being offered for free are coming out of India. And this is no shade to Mother India. I just want to say that right off the bat. But I think we have to have some honest conversations about India. And there's so many colors of India. One of my favorite, to be quite honest, one of my favorite activities is to bring people to India, to experience India and meet some profound teachers. I love India so much. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that most of these Indians that are leading these yoga teacher trainings are qualified to do that. So I would actually say this big phenomena of learning yoga in India, I mean, it's been going on for a while, but it's been really catching on the last few years. So if you're an Indian who's making probably $100 a month, 150, maybe 200, you know, I don't know what the medium wage is right now, but typically most Indians that I met, you know, a $200 US dollar a month salary is, you know, a decent wage for a lot of Indians living in India. And so if you have the opportunity to get $500 a student and get like 5 students together, that's $2,500. That's more than a year's salary. So, and when you're competing against yoga teachers who might be charging even $3,000 a student, or you know, $5,000 a student, that's going to be a very competitive thing. And of course, us Westerners, we seem to think like, oh, they're Indians. This is the, you know, the place of yoga. They must know more than I do. So I'm going to learn a lot. And that's not necessarily always true. I would say that biomechanically, a lot of Westerners have definitely a bigger understanding of what anatomy and physiology is about. Westerners have like this much broader understanding of the body, and I would even go as far as saying yoga. Typically most Indians have a very different approach to yoga, and I don't want to kind of get into the weeds of it, but I'm just going to kind of like leave it at that. And so, and that's not to say that we should throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. We definitely have a lot to learn from many Indians, and it's one of the reasons why I go back is to hear the stories and to hear the practices. But the way that they are taught asana and the way that they think that they should be teaching asana is not necessarily the most conducive way. I can take Mr. Iyengar and Mr. Patabi Joyce, who are the father of Iyengar yoga and especially Ashtanga yoga with Patabi. And let me just kind of like talk about Patabi for a moment. His philosophy was basically, and Mr. Bikram, was basically shut the F up, just get into the posture. And so that's the approach that a lot of Indians seem to kind of take in these practices. And from sort of, kind of giving you the basics. And one of the other things that I wanted to kind of put out there is that what I've started to see, because I keep my eyes peeled quite a bit, my ears to the ground, is that a lot of Indians have picked up this social media craze. And they understand that if they put their feet behind their head and they stand on their hands enough, that's enough kind of like smoke and mirrors to get your attention. And so if you want to go to India and learn how to put your foot behind your head and stand on your hands, go find those teachers, because they're out there for you, and you probably will only pay $500, and your yoga experience may not be as transformational as what you might intend it to be. And I always come back to, what is the bar of a really good teacher training? A really good teacher training should help you to unlock the purpose of your life. Within days of being in that teacher training, there should be this deep and profound connection to life's purpose. And when you leave that teacher training, with a clear vision of how to go out. Not only a clear vision and that feeling of indomitable willpower to go out to manifest and live your life purpose. That is what a yoga immersion should be doing for you. And what I have seen, let me rephrase that. I've never seen anybody who's gone to India, who's gone there for a yoga teacher training and left with that sense of clarity. What I can tell you is I have never, ever, ever, ever met anybody who has gone to India and left India with a very clear understanding of what yoga is, what we're doing, and how to achieve the state of yoga. All I have heard is, it was a really nice training and they brought in some gurus to talk about things. Well, what did you learn about? I don't remember. So again, it's not a diss on India. It's just saying that not all yoga teacher trainings are created equal. And so these are things to consider. And if you do see a yoga teacher training that's $500, head the other direction, sprint the other direction. So when you are looking for a teacher, yoga teacher training, don't go to India to get it. Go to India for a pilgrimage. And if you want to learn more about that, contact me or join me on my next trip to India, or contact me and ask me, like, Aaron, who should I go with? Where should I go? I can point you in the direction of some incredible pilgrimages. Go to India for a pilgrimage. Go to India to experience or deepen your connection to the authentic self. Real yoga teachers in India are not going to be found in these yoga schools. They're going to be found in very obscure places. They're going to be found in places where you normally would not be able to access them. And real yoga teachers are not standing on their hands and not standing or sitting with their feet behind their head. Real yoga teachers are very obscure, they're very hidden, and they're usually very quiet. So just something to kind of think about when you're choosing yoga teacher training. Again, please leave in the comment section, tell me what you think yoga teacher training is worth. How much would you pay for a yoga teacher training? And also please share with me a little bit about, do you think that a yoga teacher training, you should travel to a yoga teacher training? Have you? If you've taken a yoga teacher training, was it in the city? Was it over a 6-month period? Tell me a little bit about your experience. So let's talk about these expensive teacher trainings. What I have found is that in these higher priced teacher trainings, there's often a lot, again, of smoke and mirrors. And what are those smoke and mirrors? Well, oftentimes they're very sexy and stunning people with six packs, again, standing on their hands. I've also noticed that a lot of them tend to be situated in very kind of posh settings. Which, by the way, and again, this is no shame. I don't like to shame people at all. If you like a posh setting, if you want your room to be cleaned daily, if you want, caviar with your dinner, if you want air conditioning, if you want a TV in your room with all of the channels, if you want like Egyptian 800 count Egyptian cotton sheets, you should have those things. This is not a diss on anything. But again, is that really the essence of the yoga teacher training? Is that really what you're going to be getting, or is that what you're signing up for in your yoga teacher training experience? And so a lot of those things can be, again, smoke and mirrors to kind of like upsell the yoga teacher training. There are a lot of smoke and mirrors. I had this one guy who came to Blue Osa several years ago who was not leading a training, he was actually leading a retreat, but he pulled me aside and he said, "Aaron, everybody is into coconut water. We have to have coconut water so I can do my coconut water ritual." And so that is a huge red flag to look for, especially in these higher priced yoga teacher trainings. Look for like language such as rituals of coconut water, as if coconut water is going to make you a spiritual person or a better person. Okay, so definitely look for that as a smoke and mirror. There has been, over the last, I would say 10 years, but especially in the last like 5, 6, 7 years, to move away from, like when I started doing yoga teacher trainings and when I started doing yoga retreats, it was like normal to go to a place that had very little to offer. You know, I remember one of the very first yoga retreats I led in Costa Rica was at this place called Tierra de Milagros. And I don't think it's being really held anymore as a yoga retreat. But back then it was with Nikki and Brad, and they were just two of the most beautiful, lovely people, and they still hold a profound place in my heart. And they had this place, which was an open air place in the jungle. So you kind of came in, there was a thatch roof, and you know, there was a wall that was about waist high, maybe a little bit higher. And you would go in, and then there was a mosquito net on the bed. And it was like something out of Africa, for goodness sakes. So this place was just really effing cool. Like it was, for me, that was the bomb. And so when I opened Blue Osa with Adam, my business partner, we talked about opening up, like in having all of these open air kind of places. Oh my goddess. Thank God we didn't, because the yoga market has completely changed. People will not do that. Even if you discount it enough, People will not usually do that. They want the Egyptian satin cotton sheets. They want the air conditioning. They want enclosed rooms. They need to feel safe. And everybody has a different definition of what feels safe. You know, right or wrong, good or bad, no judgment, no shade. It's just more of an observation of how we've moved from these very kind of austere surroundings to moving towards like we want what we want when we want it. And you can see that a lot in the yoga world. So there's been a huge push to move away from this. And I'm starting to see yoga retreats, not yoga teacher trainings, yoga retreats, triple occupancy rooms, 3 people to a room. So each person's paying $4,000 to room with another person. So there's this huge push to move away from, like, again, these kind of like very austere kind of yoga retreats to something that's a lot, you know, more expensive. So what are some things that you might want to consider or should consider when choosing a yoga teacher training? Before I kind of jump into this conversation, I just want to say that I lead yoga teacher trainings immersions. So I'm in kind of like that immersive yoga teacher training experience, although I've kind of developed a hybrid, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a second. But, you know, one of the things that I've kind of gleaned, and this is through my own experience, but it's also through talking to experts in my field who have or lead yoga immersive experiences. And the top 2 things that they always kind of talk about, people make decisions based upon timing. And so sometimes they end up quitting a job. Sometimes they end up getting fired. Sometimes they're making a huge life decision and they're in transition. One of the most common kinds of people that come to my yoga teacher trainings are people who are just finishing like their degree or a master's or a doctorate, or, you know, in that transition in school, like they've just finished something, they're either going to go back to work or go out into the workforce, or they've done all of this school and they're not sure if they're right on the right track in life. So they're just questioning everything. So, you know, timing and then location, like right now, Bali is on everybody's mind because there's Bali. So everybody's talking about it. So everybody's going to Bali. A couple of years ago, it was Costa Rica. We got to go to Costa Rica. So it's really about location and timing. And while I totally get it and appreciate it, and again, no judgment, it might sound like I'm an asshole for saying this, but you really should try to elevate the reason of where you are choosing your yoga teacher training. What I see happen a lot, not in mine of course, in my trainings people come to study with me typically, but what I see a lot in a lot of trainings is that people are choosing the location because of timing and pray that the yoga teacher, they're going to get a good yoga teacher. And most of them will say, by the way, they had a good yoga teacher because they don't know any different. They don't know what they don't know until they know that they didn't know it. And they come to a teacher training like mine where we dive deep into the sutras. We dive deep into what is asana and the purpose of asana, and how do we take that into a real life, real world, real life experience. And then they go, my God, I never learned this. Or when we break down like what is actually happening in these poses biomechanically, people always say to me, my God, my teacher never talked about this stuff. I remember there was this one, I've actually had several people come into my training, but this one girl named Julianne, and it really kind of stuck in my mind because she had a background in fitness. She had her yoga teacher training, and she came into mine and she said, being in your yoga teacher training, Yogi Aaron, was like I'd never taken yoga teacher training before. In fact, it was like I'd never even taken a yoga class before. Picking the right yoga teacher for your yoga teacher training is paramount, and having not only a curriculum that is solid, but having an experience that breaks down things so much. In the previous conversation, one of the red flags I told you to look for is how many yoga teacher trainings are being taught by yoga teachers who don't even have a 500-hour experience. They just got their 200-hour maybe 6 months before, maybe a year before, and all of a sudden they feel like they are knowledgeable enough to go out and lead a yoga teacher training. So that's something else to kind of consider. And before I could move on here, just one more time, leave in the comments, tell me what you think a yoga teacher training is worth. I'd love to hear from you. What was your experience? How much did you pay? Where did you get it? Was it an immersive? Was it in your location? So how long, so some considerations are how long do you have to have, because that can really inform you on what kind of yoga teacher training you'll be taking and what kind of teacher training you can get. So not all yoga teacher trainings are created equal. Not all yoga teachers are equal. I would say that more than 99% of yoga teachers today in the world have no clue about anatomy, even though they're teaching it. A lot of what they're teaching is either by giving you a coloring chart to fill in, or, and I'm not making this up, but they are making up stuff. There's a lot of pseudoscience in the yoga world and a lot of yoga teachers just making up stuff. So again, be aware of that. In my opinion, and again, this is just my opinion, what I have seen work the best is a yoga teacher training that has a hybrid experience. And by hybrid, I mean it's an immersive experience to give you a really profound, saturated experience so that you become steeped in these trainings, in these teachings. It is one that offers pre-immersive support so that you have the support that you need to go out, to go into that training. And then of course the follow-up. There's a follow-up experience, and that's done through, maybe it's done through online support, maybe it's done through book reports, through giving you assignments. And I'm not saying to pile you with a lot of work, but to give you enough exercises so that when you leave the training, you can start to put things into practice. So a good yoga teacher training, in my opinion, has those elements. How much should it be worth? That's really, subjective to you. But I would just say that if you find a teacher training of value and you are connecting to the teacher, and in the next breath, if you turn around and go, oh, well, this one is cheaper, I'm going to go with this one, chances are you're robbing yourself of the best experience of your life. And you could be, missing the opportunity to walk through that door that the universe has just opened for you to go out, so that you can go out to manifest and live your life purpose. I want to thank you all, guys, for joining me here. And I hope that you'll come and check out our yoga teacher trainings. I will leave it, link to it in the comments below. I lead 200-hour, 14-day immersions, and I also lead 300 hours once a year. And I will love to have you guys come and join me. Blue Osa is one of the most magical places you'll ever be in your life, and it will leave an indelible imprint on not only your body and your stomach, of course, but also your heart. Namaste, everybody. Have a super wonderful day. Again, please leave the comments and share with me some of your experiences. I'd love to hear from you. And I always respond to the comments that you leave. Be well, everybody. Namaste.